Absolutely.
The scene in Minneapolis last night is captured in still photos. Police and the National Guard arresting protesters for defying a curfew imposed for the second straight night. Protests over the death of George Floyd, the black man who died in the custody of a white police officer, have continued in the city now for 6 days and 6 nights, and they have spread well beyond Minneapolis, right across the United States into dozens of cities and Canada and other countries around the world.
What's up, Jimmy Street?
I watched this man die. I was the one that was recording the whole.
What's wrong with the state of Missouri? Somebody, please, come and see about Missouri because it's too far. It's too much.
Tonight, we're learning disturbing new details from the night Louisville police shot and killed Breonna Taylor in her apartment. This information raises new questions about the officer's conduct that night. Here's CBS's Jeff Pegues.
Leslie Bell announced this afternoon that he had been re-examining this case. At the press conference this afternoon, Bell announced that he will not be filing charges against Darren Wilson.
Thank you for joining me for another Retreon Project podcast here with Retreon Media. Tonight we have a very special show. I have some wonderful guests that are going to be helping me and Fabrice with our baby. Noir is the New Black. Lady, gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
We are
Great,
good.
thank
I'm
you.
good. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm going to default to the lady of the house first. Tell us who you are and tell us what you rep.
I am MD Marie, and we're doing a story in Noir is the New Black, and the story is actually called Noir. So that's what we're doing.
Excellent. And the genre that we're tapping into is that your wheelhouse? Is this something that you like normally? Like, are you a noir fan?
I am a noir fan, and the story that Don and I are composing is in my wheelhouse. So, yes, I love what we're doing. Yes, thank you. We will. I hope to not disappoint.
All right, Don, tell us who you are. Tell us what you rep.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Don Walker. I am Dork Empire Inc. I self-publish the books Agent Wild and Reaper Core, and I am super happy to be on Noir's New Black with MD, and we're gonna kick some butt.
Well, I'm happy you two were able to join us tonight as we discuss not only the project, but this is a formal conversation because up until this moment, we haven't really had a chance to talk. I mean, I've seen you around Facebook, I've seen work out there, but we don't know each other. So we're going to get to know each other while we discuss some of the social issues that are kind of holding us down right now and why a project like this is necessary. Now, I'm quite sure you heard the intro. We have seen a lot happen this year. We have seen a lot happen for the past 5 years, decade, 20 years. None of this is really new, but due to COVID, it's in front of us. We can't avoid it now, with our day-to-day lives of work and traffic and bills. I mean, social media has blown up, and the more stories come out, the more stories that happen maybe 8 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, now they're starting to surface, which is only exacerbating an already sensitive issue, and that is we need serious change in this country. Now, there are certain things that we can accomplish on our own, but for the most part, it's a joint effort. All of us coming together in pursuit of meaningful and sustainable change and equality. But how do you attack that where you sit? What can you personally do? That's a question that I want to ask our audience. What can you personally do? In this case, I feel that the best course of action is to attack the issue with what you know. And what the two of you know is how to create a story. And our fearless leader, who could not make it tonight, knows is you can use the medium to affect meaningful change, at least to shift the narrative in the public view. So, without further ado, thank you for joining again. Tell us, how do you think we can shift the narrative in this country using medium? Like, what do you think we can put out that can be disseminated that will change minds? Do you think a project like this can actually do the job? I'll start with MD Marie.
I think that a project like this is definitely a good launch pad to start changing the narrative. I believe that how we contribute to changing the narrative is by telling stories that tell the truth, that explain the experiences and provide some extent of explanation as to our perception of what's going on and how it impacts and affects us. And I believe that stories have always had that ability to do that if we can reach the readers, right? If we find the right people like you and Fabrice that want to bring this to the forefront and want to put this in the public so that it can be read and it can be seen and hopefully one day converted into a film or into an extension or a television series, I think that this is a good launch pad to begin to change the narrative. And if we can get, the more people we can get their eyes on it, the more we can expand the intelligence of the audience, right? Mm-hmm. And influence people to change their minds and to, understand out where we're coming from, what we're experiencing, and then help to affect the change.
I like that. I like that a lot. Don, do you wanna chime in?
Yeah, my take is I hope this book can help. Your opening, to the show brought me back to the last 5 years of this racial injustice, racial hatred. Trump's election has shined not only a brighter light, but a magnifying glass on racial tension in this country. Can this book help that? I don't know. We have to, people you want to change minds have to want to read this book, knowing what that's by, all Black creators. Because that for people who we want to change minds, they're probably not going to want to read this anyway, because it's by all Black creators. And that sounds super pessimistic, but it's kind of what the world I live in right now is. I feel like, let's just call it what it is. The racists out there, if they know it's by all Black creators, we'll probably just pass it by and not bother. I know that the title of the book doesn't say that we're all Black creators, so hopefully that will, get them to buy the book. Anyway, they don't know it's us, but they read it, enjoy it, and go, "Oh, Black folks made this, cool." But I think the people in the camp of racism, they're dug in deep, and so I'll try to make this super short. I believe there are 3 types of people in every nationality group. I don't like to use the word race because we're not different races. We're all the same race. We just have different national origins, hence our different, skin tones and pigments, whatever. But yeah, people, just use white people for an example. Yeah, white people who are cool with everybody, right? Like Fabrice, the guy we keep talking about. Fabrice he's French, he's Caucasian looking, he loves everybody. And that's the kind of people we all love to hang out with, right?
Right.
To the furthest extreme, you have your Trump supporters who are like, racist as shit. Then you get the middle ground Caucasians. This is in every group too, not just white people. It's every group. You have like the moderates who are like, I'm cool with black people, but if they were gone tomorrow, I wouldn't really care. So those are the folks I'm hoping this book reaches and starts a discussion, and they learn about our struggle, and whether it's this book or talking to us at cons or whatever or on social media, and they understand. Like, I'm seeing a lot of people in my daughter's generation. She's a Zoomer. She's like almost 13. A lot of her white friends get it, surprisingly. Like they're all like out there marching and stuff, even during COVID, and it's surprising and humbling and heartwarming that I know her and like the millennials are all out there with us. So, yes. So, bring it full circle. Yes, I hope the book helps. I want it to. I hope that it does. But at 47, I'm kind of like, yeah, fingers crossed. You know what I mean?
Well, that's actually going to lead into the next part. So, and I'm going to pass it back to Emily Marie for a moment. You know, and I'm not asking your age. Don't worry. I'm not going to ask you after that. What I am going what I am
I'm
going
always
to
21.
only, you know what? I will swear to that if asked. But Don, you mentioned being, 47, you mentioned wanting people to understand the struggle, right? Well,
yeah,
we've all had our own personal struggles. We've all had our road to get to where we sit right now, having this discussion right now. You've never seen or heard from me in life. It is only recently that I have come to know of you both. So that means my 38, you're 47, her 21. We have been living our struggle and own individual experience out there in the wild. So, Andy Marie, if you don't mind, I would like to share a little bit of the road that got you to where you sit now, because I think that is going to be as important for not only the reader, but for those who would like to back this project to understand the people behind who are making it. So could you tell me a little bit about how you got from point A to point B?
I'm not sure that I can. That's a pretty broad question, right? And my experiences have been equally as broad. So for me to narrow it to say, this is how I got to this moment in time right now is going to be a little challenging. Okay. So I'm going to defer to Don first to see if I can piggyback off of him.
Okay.
Like, damn it, I was hoping she said something good I could piggyback off. Oh, jeez.
How did you get here, Don?
Super loaded question, yeah. As far as the comic itself, like, I've been a fan of like science fiction and superheroes since I was a kid. I saw Star Wars Episode 4 at a drive-in theater with my dad. I was 5. And that lit the fire of like science fiction in me. I was hooked with sci-fi from then on, right? Mm-hmm. Before that, it was like monster movies like Godzilla and stuff. But I was like, what the hell is this? This is awesome. Star Wars is the best thing ever. And so between films, my dad bought me the comics. So Star Wars, the film, Episode 4, was my gateway into comics. I would just buy Star Wars comics until the next movie came out. And then little by little, I started getting stuff like, the Micronauts comics, because they had a toy line. So there was kind of the cross play with that. And then, like most kids, Spider-Man was everywhere. I started buying Spider-Man comics, for years and years. When I was like, I think 10 or so, I bought my first X-Men comic. Uncanny X-Men, like 183. It was like this really cool issue. It was a bar fight between, what's his name? Colossus and, what's the big dude who runs through walls all the time, can't be knocked down?
Oh, yeah, Juggernaut.
Yes, Juggernaut. Yeah. So, yeah, Cyclops. Juggernaut and Colossus in a bar fight. like the coolest thing ever. I was like, this is really cool. Superheroes doing average stuff, you know. And I got into making comics when I was like 16. My first published work when I was 16 years old. I've been in and out of comics since I was a kid. Like, always read them. Probably until 2000. I was an avid reader until 2000. I had worked at a comic shop from 1997 to 99, while also, while also trying to work in comics. So it was comics 24/7. Like, I sell them, I go home and draw them, or write them, and I kind of burned out of that. I then went to film school in 2000. That was film for 2000, I don't know, 10. I got married in 2002, so I put film and comics aside because I was married and all that jazz, did all that. But I guess I had a heart. I'm a storyteller, whether it's film or TV, or film, TV, comics. I want to tell stories. So I always fall back into comics because they are cheaper to produce. I have unlimited budget, so to speak, as a writer artist of a book. So I tell stories I want to tell without, fear of not having money. And again, I love the medium. So I think whatever I do, I'll always come back to do comics at some point, just because I love the medium so much. And then now with the social issues of the day, it's more important that I tell stories to have my point of view out there. Now, I'm mixed race also. Like, my dad was black, my mom had some Jamaican and white and Irish and all these other things in her. So I'm kind of super mixed up. And then I'm married to a woman who's half Mexican, half Filipino. So my daughter is even more super mixed. So I'm coming at this whole comic thing from a very diverse home life and I guess ideology. Most of my comics I often have either they're aliens, they're based on alien characters, and then if there's human characters, I often will add Black or Hispanic characters in the mix because, I'm from California and born and raised California. They're everywhere. Like my world is diverse, so doing diverse characters never seemed to be a big deal to me until the advent of social media. Now all of a sudden it's like, how diverse character is somehow an agenda? When I'm like, well, no, I live that life. Like, they're here. Like, even my doing aliens, like my Agent Wild book and my Reaper Corps book are all about aliens dealing with things on Earth, or with Reaper Corps, it's about sentient cyborgs in a society that includes humans, sentient cyborgs, and human clones who are kind of like living the apartheid black lifestyle of the 90s, but this is all set in the future and stuff. So social issues and diversity have always been the norm for me. And again, now that social media is somehow it's all a big freaking liberal plot to overthrow the world or something, it strikes me as both sad and odd.
No, you're right. Yeah, we're taking over the world. Yeah, that's our goal. Yeah.
By making Captain America somehow not as white anymore. I don't know what is that argument? What the hell?
So along the way from comic book stores through film school, marriage, what's one of the biggest struggles, or what was a moment that you would like to share, where you were like, oh, okay, yeah, this is totally not cool? Have you ever had a close call? I mean, any wake-up calls along the way?
You know what? The wake-up call for me has been Comic-Cons. And I've been into comics for like 3 years, and like literally 3 years ago, Brandon Easton, who we all know, I'm sure, know of, Amazing writer of TV, film, and comics. He writes, Transformers and whatnot for IDW, as well as he's one of the writers on a new Transformer TV show on Netflix. He was at the Comic Bug, my local comic shop, doing a Q&A, and he mentioned his struggles at Comic-Cons and how black fans would walk past him like he wasn't sitting there. And I'd experienced a little bit of that at shows. Like, I haven't done a whole lot of shows yet. So when he told me that, I was like, it's not just me. Okay. Because I'm thinking, wait, so, like, at shows, more times than not, the black fan will walk past me, not even looking my direction. They'll make a point of not looking at me. You can feel it, right? And but again, I can sit there and go, well, just as many white or Asian or Hispanic fans walk past me, not giving a damn. I'm sitting there, so I didn't think much of it until Brandon said that, and I was like, damn, okay, maybe there is a thing within the comic community. And again, it's not even white people; it's the black fans that don't want to read my stuff. Me personally, I've literally sold more books to the Latinos than anybody else. If I had to put a face to my fan base, it's mostly Latinos or Latinx fans, then Caucasian or Asian and African Americans. Now, I've had African American fans come to shows just looking for the African American creators and buy my stuff. But that's fewer and far between than the black fan who wants to ignore my work. And I believe part of that, particularly on social media, I've seen this thing where black fans want inclusion, they want representation, but they only give a damn if Marvel and DC are repping their inclusion representation. There are plenty of us out here, doing books with black people in them, or black creators just doing comics in general. Like, I was hoping to doing cons that, minorities in general would see another minority sitting there going, cool, a minority. I'll just look at his book. I've gotten some of that, but like, a black fan has perplexed me more than anybody else. Let's put it that way.
We're gonna table just for right now the support element of the indie comic scene, because that's actually an important issue that I'm happy somebody brought that up. So we're going to definitely come back to that, but we're going to go back up to the top to MD Marie. You've heard Don speak. Was there a moment in your journey that you had a wake up call and you're like, yep, this isn't cool?
Yes, I've had 2 wake-up calls. The first one was not a negative wake-up call. So the first one was I was looking for my voice and the style I wanted to write and what I wanted to say. So that first wake-up call was actually when I saw Hellspawn by Todd McFarlane. And that opened my eyes, and that was where my voice was. And I was like, that's what I want to say, and that's how I want to say it. As far as the part of my journey where I found disappointment, it was when I write women that I believe are sexy because of their physical prowess and their intelligence. And a lot of readers did not care for my characters if they couldn't see their boobs or their ass or their thighs. I'm sorry, can we cuss on this podcast?
Yes,
because if I need to synonyms, I'll work hard. But like, I was at a Comic-Con where I was selling my books and I was dressed as one of my main characters, and this guy was taking pictures, and he said he does this. He has his own following on his Instagram or whatever, and he's taking pictures of all these women at the Comic-Con. And I said, well, do you want to take my picture? I'm this character. And I, went into my whole pitch and everything. So he reluctantly took my picture, and then he came back later and he said, I'm sorry, you're just overdressed. So I'm not going to post your picture. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, are you even interested in my character? He was like, if she's wearing as much clothing as you are, I probably wouldn't read it. And then I was talking to other creators, and they were saying, yeah, your cleavage has got to be this high, and the outfit's got to be this low, and the bottom part's got to be this high, because sex sells. And I was like, well, shouldn't we be changing that narrative? Like, shouldn't it be about because dudes don't have to be 90% naked to sell a book. Look at Batman; he's covered from head to toe. All you see is his eyes and his lips. And everybody buys these books. And he was like, yeah, but that's Batman. Nobody cares what he looks like. I'm like, really though?
Well, to be fair, he did go through his nipple phase in the Schulmacher age. So
okay, I did miss that. But I have never seen Batman just wearing his Speedo, And they're like, well, why do you think Batgirl doesn't sell? And I'm like, really? Is that why she doesn't sell? Because you can't see anything? And they're like, well, that's my theory. So that was my disappointing moment in comics. And I kind of get that, because a lot of people who come to the booth that I'm at will come more to flirt with me than actually, I don't want to be unfair. A lot of people come for the story, but I have had occasions where people come up to flirt with me and are not actually interested in my stories. So those were my disappointing moments at cons. And again, I don't want to be unfair to the fans that actually came for the story, but peppered in between, there's these, oh, so can I get your number? We should connect, that kind of thing.
Now, again, to be completely fair for this discussion, riding off of what you just said and what Don said too, there are a lot of fans or people curious for new books, new adventures that will head to these cons. But he's right, Don. You're right. I've seen it myself, where you will see a whole row of artists or writers down at Artist Alley, and people will walk by. I don't know what it is. Well, actually, I do kind of have an idea of what it is, and we can discuss that. I don't agree with the fact that Marvel and DC in 2020 has to lead the charge in order for people to pay attention. The battle between the big two, right? But the indie scene has been cranking out new and amazing journeys and adventures and characters with unique power sets and looks and backstories and origins. It's nothing new. I mean, I feel like every other minute there's a new hero bursting onto the scene. Now, before we started this cast, we had a little chat, and we were talking about Captain Marvel, and we talked about our feelings about the film, and I think we all came away with the fact that it was a fun movie. It was, and yes. You look at the Captain Marvels, and it was a success. It was another success for Marvel, and I'm happy for them, sure, but why did we have to pick Carol? Well, it's an origin story, right? But did we really have to pick Carol? Not really. We could have gone with Monica Rambeau, but we didn't. We went with Carol. Okay, that's fine. That's what they wanted to do for the MCU. But now you have female representation. We have Marvel's first serious female lead. We forgot all about Scarlet Witch,
Wonder Woman,
and we forgot all about Black Widow, who we're still waiting for her standalone film. Of course, it has to come after she's dead. I'm sorry, spoiler to anyone who hasn't in the world listening to this who hasn't seen Endgame. You brought that on yourself, okay? But Wonder Woman came out and it did gangbusters. Now we got to get Marvel's got to get the woman on the screen. Now we get the woman on the screen, and it's going to snowball in 2 more films. Okay, well, that's great. But like you just said, Emily Marie, you've been creating strong black characters, strong black women. I'm sorry, can you say it into the mic? How long have you been doing that now?
100 years. No, I've been writing, we'll say more than 25 years.
Okay.
So
now,
even though I'm only 21, I was
right. That's a time paradox, MD Marie. I don't know if you know.
She's a celestial being.
Yeah.
Or she flew into the Nexus from Star Trek Generation. She's been chilling out there for a while.
Yes.
But okay, so, but no shine there. But we're trying to change that narrative, but the message should be support, right? So let's talk about the lack of support. We talked about the people that go to the cons looking for new experiences, new adventures, whatever. But I don't understand why we are so bad to one another when we, put books like this. And I'm not saying that this isn't going to get funded. I'm not saying that this isn't going to materialize. I'm saying a book like this, if this were a tangible thing right now, and we were sitting at a booth at a con, which I wouldn't be right now, but let's just say that everything was cool and we were.
Yeah, if the world was perfect.
Right.
Yeah, COVID free.
Why is it that in our own community, they will flock to the guy who has deviant art quality, artwork? They'll go and grab a cheap picture of Submariner that they'll put on their wall for like 2 days until it falls off and it gets bundled up and thrown away. They'll go and grab that because it's fun. It's going to look awesome, right? It won't survive the con. It never survives the con. You have to be meticulous for it to survive the con.
Right.
But those books are still sitting there. You have to be like the used car salesman trying to close a deal half the time to get people to do it. And that, like we said before, comes down to the systemic racism and the systemic conditioning within the comic book industry, and the sexism that can also be in the comic book industry. We have been conditioned that Marvel and DC, good, rando independent company that you've never heard of. Well, why am I going to take a shot on that? Marvel, DC, quality, IDW, Image, quality, random company that you haven't heard of yet. Nah, I'm not going to take a chance on that. Books still cost about the same amount, but no one is really ready to roll the dice because it is comfortable. It is no longer about the characters. These are institutions. This is as American as apple pie now. Superman was selling war bonds during World War II. Wonder Woman is also punching Nazis right along with Cap. And then they just keep, aging them up, aging them down, and then aging them down, and then more retcons, and then more universes restarting. And we end up in another situation where for a new generation, these are your characters. These are the characters you buy. Why? Because they can market those characters. Thermoses, lunchboxes, backpacks, school supplies, movies, cartoons, toys, play sets, remote control cars. They can market these characters, and because they can market these characters, that is why we have been conditioned to go to Marvel, go to DC. You look over at the MCU and all of their accomplishments, which really you owe everything to New Line Cinemas and the success of Blade, but that's none of my business.
Right. Love those movies, by the way.
You start off a universe that is so popular that it snowballs into the Bryan Singer may have been on that island with Trump and the rest of those weirdos. X-Men films back in 2000, what was that, 2001? I think it was something like that, 2000, whatever. But it came out, it did what it did. Hugh Jackman was horribly cast. He grew on me. But here we are in 2020, right? and they've turned it into yet another institution. Kids that grew up, and I say kids, and I'm going to throw myself into that category. I know, MD Marie being 21, you completely understand what it was like getting up on Saturday morning and watching Fox Kids. So we had, the X-Men, and we had Spider-Man, right? That we enjoyed, right? Remember, it clearly wasn't Spider-Man and his amazing friends, or the Electric Company. No, it was totally Spider-Man and the X-Men.
Again, I was -4, so I had that experience also.
Right.
So go ahead.
Right, for sure. But they pushed the characters on us. It feels like with the comic book industry, it almost feels like, and I know, I'm sorry, MD Marie, this is going to be before your time, but Don, do you remember the Apple commercial back in '84? It was real, like, speaking of '84, it was like 1984, where it was like the office with all of the people sitting at their desks with the I believe it was the first PC, but then they introduced the first Apple computer, and everyone got up and tried to break the chains of that were shackling them. Yeah. Okay, so you remember that again? And I know that was before your time, but it was a slick commercial. It was a real.
I have YouTube.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Respect, yeah, YouTube gets it
you
done.
You like that, Don? Huh? How I go back history. Go ahead.
But to be fair, that's really what it feels like when you get down to it. It feels like when you're a child, these are your characters. These are the people that you should be watching. This is what's popular. And when you have to walk that line, of course it was always going to lead here, because the kids, young adults, I mean, be it in their 30s or their 40s, or now the Zoomers running around grew up with the MCU. And that's why comic book sales are so dismal right now for Marvel, because movies take precedent over the comics. In just a moment, we are going to be joined by a guest. I wasn't even sure if he was going to be here, and he's here. We have David Brame with us today.
Hello.
Hello, sir. How are you? Thanks for joining.
No problem. Excited to be here.
I'm going to bring you into our stream so we can save this for prosperity, and we can enjoy this footage for years to come. Or until I forget about it and accidentally format a drive and erase it. It's not beneath me. But since you're here, again, thank you for joining. Welcome.
No problem. Yeah, excited to be here.
We were talking about the lack of support that a lot of creators receive at cons. And we were also talking about the wake-up call. And I think everyone has a wake-up call where they realize, hey, man, this ain't cool. Like, something happens socially and you're like, nah, this ain't working. I mean, it could be something ultimately detrimental that happened to you. It could be an experience that you had trying to navigate the industry. It can be anything, but ultimately there's always something. So in your situation, can you speak to that? Has there ever been a moment where you're like, oh, okay, so this is what it's all about?
Like, yeah, I think, yeah, every creator has that, like, I don't want to call it, like, it's not really a breaking point, but it's just a point where you decide that this is the thing that I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to define myself. This is how I'm going to, present myself to the world, right? And for me specifically, I mean, I guess there were, like, two really big ones. One was I was a full-time professor for about 10 years of my life. So,
wow.
And that, like, I started really early. I was really young, so I went straight through school and then boom, right into teaching. So, but that entire time, I wanted to make comics. I wanted to make art. I wanted to tell stories and that kind of stuff. So it became kind of like this back burner thing, like doing academia, and then trying to fit sort of my academic self into this world of comics and creativity. And what ultimately happened was that I always defined myself as a comic creator, as a comic book artist that was dabbling in professorship. You know what I'm saying? Like that was like, and that's always what there was always that imbalance. I was always spending way more time being an artist than I was being an academic, and so I personally decided that like this is like the big moment. I can go full force into being an academic, or I can go full force into being a creator. And I chose like being a full-time creator. Like there's a certain amount of safety that comes with having a full-time job and having benefits and all those kinds of things. But I think there was a moment for me where I felt like I was not doing the thing that I wanted to be doing, and that's, and since then I was going to say like the second time that this happened, the second realization was deciding, how to describe myself as a creator. We all end up wearing these different hats as creators. You're an entrepreneur. You're a business person. You're a person that does like panels, lots of talking, that kind of stuff. So you're a presenter. You're all these other things, right? So you're wearing all these other hats. And I felt that like even that, having that many different types of things going on, and the type of person that I was like, I am not that. I am a comic book artist, and I am a creator. Like that's these are the things that I want to do. And I understand that you have to sometimes you do have to put on these other hats so that you can keep your thing going. But I define myself as specifically a cartoonist and a comic book artist. So that is like, to me, that is like is sort of the quintessential like I would say the smallest minute element of myself as a creator, and kind of what I would like expect or want that for other creators that are out there doing stuff, like being able to figure out what their hat is, what is their main purpose and point, and how they want to be a creator.
So from, I guess, academia to you creating, okay? I guess the question that I'm trying to get to, I mean, you're very much aware of what's happening in the world. I think we all are at this point. So that being said, was there ever a moment that that resonated with you, that you were like, yeah, again, like I said, this isn't cool. I understand the struggle. Like when you see a George Floyd type of a situation, or you see, you know what I'm saying? Like, was there a moment where you're like, okay, I can't believe this is happening to me?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. No, I've never been surprised. Like, not once have I been ever like I guess in a position where it's surprising. I guess if that makes sense. It's like it feels expected, I guess when you're visible, as an individual, and when you're I guess when you're proudly or loudly visible, like that, my expectation is that I will at some point in time, be in a position like a George Floyd, right? I've been in some positions where, I have dealt with peaceful police brutality, where I have been pushed down or tackled or cuffed or things like that. I have been, like in variety of situations, whether it's like, it's just, so yeah, I don't know. It's a tough situation, but I guess I always feel prepared, and I'm always ready, I guess. So it's never a surprise.
I'm sorry, MD Maru, you were saying?
Okay. No, I didn't want to interrupt him, but I did want to circle back to a couple of points that Don was making about, being at cons and there being disappointing situations there. And I don't want to negate, the race aspect and the support we get from our culture. But I did want to throw in that I think a lot of people go for the popularity of the DCs and the Marvel, right? It's not a race thing for them. It's just a matter of, they follow the crowd,
Right.
Like, I don't know if you remember, Don, we were at LA Comic-Con, and there was the year that the first, what's his name? I always forget this character's name. I always want to call him Daredevil, and it's not Daredevil. Rob, what's his name? What's the character?
Deadpool?
He's got the red, huh?
Deadpool. The Deadpool?
Deadpool. Thank you. I always forget his name. But you remember that one con that we were at when there was like 200 Deadpools there?
Oh, yeah.
The movie just came out. So,
Uh-huh.
I don't think it's always about that they don't support indie creators because of race or culture or whatever. I think sometimes they're just, following what's popular at the time, right? Not negating that these also are factors of that disappointment that, we're going to these things, we're bringing our independent IPs and we're presenting this stuff and they're not following us. And some of it is due to, us being Black creators or it being a Black subject matter, because I know a lot of people believe that because they're not Black, they can't relate to the story about a Black character, right?
Right.
But then there's also the crowd that is just following the crowd.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, it's a mixed bag. Like we were talking earlier, and Don said it best. There are like 3 different subgroups of people, and we talked about like the Febreze subgroup, we talked about the Trump supporter, and we talked about the more agnostic of the groups, right? So
right,
it works the same way. There are people that are simply going because, well, Karen Gillian's going to be there, and and Zachary Levi is signing autographs. Oh boy, I want to be there, and then.
Right.
Whatever Doctor Who decides to want to show up that particular year. And then,
right.
And then you've got the people that are going to it because they genuinely enjoy the art and they enjoy the comics. And I think right there, now that I have the 4 of you, I think it's time to delineate a little further, because I think the essence of the cons themselves are also a problem, because you have some cons that are strictly geared toward art and the artists and the writers, but a lot of the cons nowadays are more so geared toward the stars and the celebrity. So because of the successes of the films, of course, the big tickets are getting, the Zachary Levi's or, the Chris Evans or whoever. Like that's going to push tickets, and that lets the cons jack up the cost. But you take a convention like East Coast Con, and I'm not saying that just because I live on the East Coast. It's because it's a real cool con I went to. It's where I finally got to meet George Perez. Real cool moment. But what was devoid at that con was a whole bunch of, big name talent. I think the most popular person that was there that day was Val Kilmer, and he barely was there, as, he has some health issues, so it was a challenging day for him, but it was an artist-led event. Jim Starling was there, George Perez was there, Larry Hama was there. Actually, they were all on stage together, and that was really awesome because I was front row. And I'm like, yeah, this is a cool con.
Right.
James, what was it? James O'Barr was also there, and he's really morose. A nice guy, but I'm like, oh, okay, I understand the Crow even more now. You're just really depressed. I get it. I speak your language. I speak it. But no, like, it was a really cool con, and I was really looking forward to it this year because it's different than San Diego, and it's different than Baltimore and New York and Awesome and all those cons, because it really does give the independents time to shine, right? Because not only do you have some of the bigger names in comics that are there, there's more of a focus on, hey, who's that? What's that? Hey, let me tell you about my story. Okay, cool. That sounds great. Let me get issue 1. Do you want me to sign it? That'd be great. Because you never know how that one signature that day can, give a creator enough confidence to push forward and actually turn that into something big. Now, back to what you also said, you mentioned, again, what's popular, okay. And again, like I'm saying, you can hear, I agree with you. But in the same breath, if you take it back to more of a black focus, right? Where was the Icon and Rocket cartoon? Didn't exist. Icon and Rocket appeared in Young Justice for like a couple minutes in one season. All right, so you take a situation like that, you got to put that off to the side. And then you look at the success of Static Shock. Now, again, I know you're a youngin', MD, so I don't know if you remember Static Shock, the cartoon. But,
yes.
Okay. Arguably, that cartoon was amazing, and it dealt with a lot of social issues that were mature for their time. And it showed a strong and powerful black superhero. I was all for it. And he appeared in a couple crossovers. He was also in Batman
I don't
Beyond.
know that he was strong and powerful, but he was definitely smart.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about that cartoon.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a teenage kid, so he still had some, limitations. But I liked the positivity of a black character who was intellectual.
Right.
And knew how electricity worked, right? And then was also a superhero. I'm sorry, go ahead. Continue.
Oh, no, but you continue. I couldn't have said it any better myself. David, did you watch Static Shock when it was on?
Yeah, and I was like real psyched when they did when he showed up in Young Justice and like the new episodes of Young Justice, and that I think I love Static Shock.
What about you, Don? Did you watch it?
Say that again.
I did not watch it. Not that I'm not a big anime guy, so I don't watch a lot of cartoons anyway.
Okay.
I didn't want to watch it. I just don't watch a lot of cartoons.
Okay.
But I have talked to Dennis Cowan a number of times. I also got him to come down to my local comic shop to do a Q&A after I met him at a comic shop in San Fernando Valley, I believe it was. Anyway, so he produced and wrote and directed some of those episodes. One point, I think he directed and produced like 2 seasons worth of episodes of Static Shock, and he said it was a beast to get all those positive things you all are talking about into the show. The network wanted just a cutesy little show with the little black kid running around throwing lightning bolts, and he was like, it was a pain in the ass getting all the positive stuff, the positive familial portrayal. That was hard to do. They made them put the little white kid sidekick in there for quote unquote the white viewers, because white kids wouldn't watch a black kid on TV apparently.
Right.
And it was just, so it was like because you have no idea the stress it was to fight the studio at every single point to get the show on there as faithfully as possible. And they didn't want to do a Rocket and what's his name show?
Icon,
yes. They didn't want to do it because they tried to do that too. They tried an Icon show. They didn't want to do Icon show. I mean, they were. It was almost like hey, we're giving you this show. Be happy with this.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of attitude from the studio. One's enough for you people kind of idea. It's like, so I mean, going full circle back into like the black fan thing, part of it's conditioning, like we mentioned before.
Yeah. We
grow up with all these white characters.
Yeah.
And the occasional black sidekick like the Falcon or something, or the occasional Luke Cage and Power Man Iron Fist comic, you know. Like, sadly, there are way more 70s black heroes than today, which is, I don't understand how it even happened. But anyway, the conditioning of all we see are white characters from the big two. And so we grow up liking these things. And so we equate quality with Marvel and DC.
Exactly.
So I understand that perspective of the black fan, or the fan in general. I get it. But again, it goes back to I say you see on social media the constant call for where's our characters, where's our representation, where's our voice. But then when they get it, all they want to do is complain about it. Like, oh, well, that's not Marvel and DC. Or even the Marvel and DC characters get complained about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Black Panther is not done correctly.
I'm going to counter that though.
One in the Black Panther book.
I'm going to counter that though, because it works both ways though. You're 100%. You are 100%, because that is the same arguments that we hear. Oh, that's not real representation. Like okay, but you take certain projects that come out and the message is pure, right? Aaron McGruder, when he came out with the Boondocks, the original first 3 seasons, and 3 is iffy, because it started to what happened in that show is what happened in Good Times. It's the Good Times that became the JJ show, and then in the Boondocks it started to become the Riley show, even though Huey was the primary protag in the series. Right. So next thing you know, John Witherspoon and Regina King are taking, well, they're both, Riley and Huey are both Regina. Never mind. But Riley and John Witherspoon are the focus, right? Because they're funny, and Riley is ratchet, right? But the message of Huey started to slowly get buried. Why? Because Aaron lost the rights for a time to his characters on TV, and they took it in the direction that was to them marketable. So now you've got, you know,
less intimidating.
Yes.
Less offensive.
No, more offensive, because I mean, I'm sorry, Riley, and pardon the French, you know, running around like ew, N-word, UG, like that was his catchphrase for, like, really? Like, okay, younger brain, less, okay, not level 4 intellect, like level 2 intellect me back in the day. It's funny. And then you get older and you're like, well, that's not cool for some, right?
Yeah.
Now,
I always look like this, like, should I be laughing at this?
Right.
Like, I don't know that I'm comfortable laughing at this. Let me see how this plays out.
And then there's another property that's coming out here soon. I forgot what it is. It looks like a bootleg knockoff of the Justice League. It's another black creator. It's like, I think it's the Ratchet League or something like that. No, Trill League. God. Trill League. It's called the Trill League.
Trill League, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
never heard of it.
Okay, don't. Just, I saw that property appear about 6 years ago. And I looked at it.
It's on Kickstarter.
Yep. And I saw it, and I'm like, dude, are you serious? Are you really serious? Is this what we're doing right now?
So I should swipe left on that one?
Yeah. Because again, okay, so the people that complain about proper representation, much like Don was talking about there being different types of folk, it applies here too. Because there are people like us that are asking for proper representation for the community. And then there are people that are like, you're just not doing shit right. All right, well, Trill League? Okay, Trill League, Icon and Rocket, 2 totally different things, right? A story about hardware. Everyone loves Iron Man. Why don't we get a hardware story? Nope, not going to happen. So what you said about the behind the scenes of Static Shock, I'm not surprised by that, but it goes back to what we've been saying. It's the conditioning, and that's why a book like this And even if it's not this, another property needs to begin the work of shifting the narrative to let people know that we are more than running around, grabbing our crotch, playing basketball, smoking weed, running the streets, listening to trap music. That's not what we are.
And also, it's not everything we are. And also, the story, or somebody needs to let everybody know that Black stories are also as relatable as non-Black stories. Like, there is nothing so vastly different about our culture that other races cannot relate to. Right.
Exactly.
And I think that's the importance of telling stories of Black characters in a universal, platform, because a lot of people, like, even when I was selling books at conventions, people were like, well, I don't know that I would be able to relate to that story. Or if I want to go with one of my non-Black friends to see a Black movie, they're like, it's not about me. It's not, something that I think I'll understand. You know what I mean? And I think that needs to also be dispelled. And people need to know that, just because it's a Black character doesn't mean it's not someone you can't understand. It's not all about the rapper, the basketball star, the athlete, the so on and so forth. These are, people who have similar situations or can have something that everyone has in common, or a situation that is understandable by every community, right?
Mm-hmm. I think Dave was about to jump in. Did you have a counterpoint, Dave?
Oh no, I was just going along. Well, I was just saying, like, I think, Black people aren't a monolith. I think we actually are those things. We're more than. I mean, some people are ratchet. Some people are highly intellectual. Some people are, they want to do things that are more surreal or psychedelic. Some people want things that are more like based in reality and here. So having that breadth of ideas and I guess ideology is proper representation. That's what it looks like. It looks like Trilogy and Boondocks and Bounce and all these like representations of the many facets of Blackness, and the full use of that diaspora.
Oh no, I agree with that. It's just the fact that, much like what was happening with Static, and much like we have seen, the powers that be, the corporate structure is more set on portraying only one side of that, right? Like, growing up in the 80s, you had the Cosby Show, and, Cliff Huxtable was portrayed a certain way. His family was portrayed a certain way. They had practically the TARDIS for a brownstone. I've never seen a brownstone that big, and I lived in one. So you had all of that happening. You had like my father, and I love him dearly, but working class stiff coming home looking at shows like that, and he wouldn't say it, but you could tell he's like, damn, I'm not Cosby. I don't have that. And that didn't really speak to him, but it was something for him to aspire for. And then you look at Good Times. What, we're all living in poverty? So again, it goes back to what you were saying before. You're not doing it right. Well, yeah, that's true, but there are many, many sides, which is why an anthology makes sense, because you can show different sides of who we are. And really, what you said, MD Marie, 100%. Like, I wish I could shake your hand through the screen. We have, I do, because you took the words like right out of my head. I mean, it makes complete sense that we can have, like Dave was saying, although I really don't like the Troll League Dave. I really don't. I think it's despicable.
Not since like it was on DeviantArt, man. Like, I love Troll League. It's like one of the funniest things like I've seen in a long time.
We can disagree, but I will defend your right to believe what you want. I will defend that.
Right.
It's any different than Boondocks. I mean, they're doing the same thing.
Right. But it's like the Great Value Boondocks with some hero costumes to me. But we can talk about that. Okay, we can talk about that later. What I was going for is, what MD Marie was saying is the fact that our experiences are not so different than white experiences. You can have a show like the Trailer Park Boys. Everyone's laughing their ass off at it, right? You can have Workaholics. Everyone's laughing their ass off at that, right? two totally different social groups. You can have a show like Friends, and then you can do a show like Breaking Bad, right? They're all different. Different classes, different walks of life, and it works, and it's entertaining. Everyone was watching David Caruso put on his sunglasses and give a one-liner a couple years ago, but before that, he was taking his pants off for NYPD Blue. Like, it's all over the place. They are not one-dimensional creatures, neither are we, and that needs to be properly conveyed.
Let's see if I can jump in real quick.
Yes, sir.
The whole idea, that myth that white people can't relate to black stories is propagated by white people. Okay, right? It's not. We're not telling anything. We're not doing anything they don't do. But particularly the powers that be at the big two, and the Marvel Studio before Feige got complete control, they had some loser in there who literally would not let them do a Black Panther movie or a Captain Marvel movie.
Avi Arad.
He was like, was that him?
Yeah.
He was like, no one wants to see black people on screen. No one wants to see women on screen. So that's why they didn't do all that stuff earlier, because that asshole was in the way. I think we had the same problem at Marvel and DC. That they want to tell a certain kind of black story, or you can look at it, they want to tell a certain story. They only put black people in certain story, like Black Lightning and Cyborg. All we get at DC.
Mm-hmm.
Black Panther, occasional Storm story. All we get at Marvel. There's some more now. Obviously, Mosaic came out for a little while, and DC has some other stuff. But because they're largely white people, let's call it what it is. Elephant in the room. White people are control all this, and they either don't want to give us more representation. But I can swear to you this: they don't want to give us characters that can rival the white characters.
Yes.
When Icon and Milestone got put into the DC universe proper, they went out of their way to I'll say devalue them. They definitely didn't. Like, Icon should be able to whoop Superman's ass, or at least come close to it. There's no way they're gonna have a black character whooping Superman's ass ever. Okay,
unless it's a white character. Unless it's a white character.
But that's the thing. The black character won't ever be able to beat the white character, because then the black people, us fans, can go, "Oh my God, Icon whooped Superman's ass! I love Icon now. Where's Icon Comics?"
Mm-hmm.
They don't want that. Yeah. They want to give us. They want to give us our crumbs.
It also scares a certain audience of the white demographic, right? And they don't want to scare them off, because then they start, wanting to protest and boycott and this kind of things. Because,
or become Comicsgate.
Are any of us unaware that blackness scares a certain, portion of the American demographic?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So if you give people of color a powerful character of color, that scares them, and they don't like that.
Nope.
Exactly.
And that's why these characters of color will never beat Superman or whoever the iconic character is, Batman, Superman, whoever, right? They'll never be more powerful than them, because they're already scared of the color of our skin.
What's messed up about that, and I know MD, like we were talking earlier, like we're both in the same boat. Like DC, it's mad weird right now, and before having a brain fart. They were originally going to do a storyline called 5G, and 5G got canceled because, and wow, I cannot believe I'm having a brain fart with his name. But the original editor, he got his walking papers. And,
Video?
Huh? Yes, Dan Didio. Yes, yeah, Dan Didio. Thank you. I was having a brain fart. Yeah. Someone saved me. See, you're my hero now. But that was his baby, and I remember reading up to the events that they were starting to put things in place for it. Mm-hmm. But beyond his dislike for Dick Grayson, and I don't know what his hard-on is for Dick Grayson. He's always hated Dick Grayson and like some of the legacy characters. The one thing that he was doing was he made Selena. Oh, he got Selena Kyle knocked up. Bruce is the daddy. Alfred's dead. Yeah. And Bruce was in the process, I believe, due to this event, he was eventually going to retire. Superman was going to retire. Bruce was going to retire. All the mainstays were going to go away because they were going to deal with the reason why they're perpetually 30. After,
right.
Okay, so they were going to actually deal with that in canon. And the result of dealing with that would have had all the mainstay heroes that we know step down and make way for the next generation. Now, I know, long-winded, but there's a reason for that. Luke Fox, Lucius Fox's son, was set up to become the next Batman, a black man as Batman, and then boom, Didio's gone. It's weird. Yeah. It's weird. Like you were all on board for 5G. You started the marketing campaign for 5G. You put the pieces in place to set up for 5G. I want Luke Fox to beat Batman. Didio gone.
Okay, but see, here's where I come in as the black comic fan, and where my representation issue comes with Big Two especially. Create a character that's black, that's as cool as Batman. Don't make the black character Batman. This is like, don't make an Asian guy Hulk. Don't make, stop giving other people the mantle of their characters. Yeah. Right. So like, just make a cool ass character that can be as cool as Batman. But don't call him Batman.
You can't.
Because then you're just giving me a retread. Okay. Right. Like I don't need enough character. Like Batgirl doesn't sell. You know why? Because she's a retread of Batman.
Yeah, she's derivative.
She's derivative. That's all she is.
Got too much clothes on.
No, but she was badass when Gail Simone was writing her. Like that was the best she's ever been.
Exactly. You can make a badass character, but like stop making derivatives of other characters. Like give me a black Batman doesn't make me feel good about representation. You passed it down. Like okay, so like the Falcon becoming Captain America was fine because there's a history of Falcon being a partner to Cap that's decades long in the comics. That's fine, but making a black dude Batman is stupid.
Actually, no, I gotta disagree with you.
No, they're trying to sell me a black character with a Batman's name.
Well, okay,
they're not trying to give me anything new or original. Right. Well,
now hold on, Don. Now hold on. Hear me out first, though. For starters, your argument, you postulate that it's okay because of the history that Cap has had with Sam over the years. Okay. Real quick, not like I have to tell you because you've probably been reading for a while, but one pet peeve, and we can get to later, is why did Sam Wilson have to start off as a bad guy? Why do you have to start off as a pimp? We'll get to that later. But through history, Sam Wilson takes over for Cap. Great. He did it in the comics, and then we see it happen on the big screen. Awesome. Okay. Look forward to the series. Luke Fox actually was helping out Bruce as part of Batman Incorporated that Grant Morrison started about a decade ago. So there is history there. He stood on his own as Batwing for years until DC decided, well, these books aren't really selling, so ta-ta. So not as much history, but at least DC created a character that didn't start off as a deviant that was like, I gotta put my bad days behind me and do some good, and then become the Sam Wilson that we know, even though they watered him down with Anthony Mackie. We all know that was really Clarence. After he lost that rap battle, he joined the service and became someone special. 8 Mile reference. I don't know if everyone remembers 8 Mile. It's okay. I'll let myself out. But they watered him down on the big screen. That's what he really was in the comics. Luke Fox didn't start out that way. He was an awesome character. So them doing that is not necessarily a bad thing from a legacy standpoint, which is what DC's all about. Where I agree with you, and I probably agree with the rest of you, is it's a half-hearted measure. Yes, create a new character and put the same force and marketing behind that character to make that character special. But it goes back to what we said earlier. These characters that we have right now are institutions. So you need to keep the marketing machine going. How do you do that? You palette swap a white character out, you drop a black character in or an Asian character in, because at the end of the day, it's still Hulk, it's still Spider-Man, it's still Batman. We can still market that. Miles Morales is a sore spot to me because I love him as a character. I do. I loved Into the Spider-Verse. I really did. But why did it take Brian Michael Bendis creating that character? He is essentially everything that we said that we loved about Static. Everything that Virgil stood for happened years before you decided to create Miles Morales, and you did it for the inclusionary initiative that Marvel had. And then they didn't put him in the main continuity. They put him in the Ultimates, and then they brought the Ultimate Universe, and then they brought him over. Okay? But it's the same thing. It's the same different toilet, if you understand where I'm going with that. They keep doing the bait and switch. But Don, you're right. Give me someone new that we can then rally behind, invest in, buy the merchandising, whatever you throw out there. My screensavers. Right. But they're not doing that. Because it doesn't sell.
Can I play devil's advocate there? It took decades to make the characters that we're talking about now icons. Like, these characters have literally been around since the 40s.
Yeah.
They don't have that lifespan anymore to, take a brand new character and raise them to the popularity that it took to get Superman where he is, or to get Batman where he is, right?
Right.
They would have to hyper accelerate this character to get them to the iconic status of those other characters. So I would see, from argument's sake, I would say that, they're like, I ain't got time to do it. You know what I'm saying? So they don't create a new character. They just take a popular character and change the color.
Right. Institution.
I disagree with that, though. One aspect with Marvel and DC in particular, okay? These are two giant corporations. They could publish all their books, make no money at all, and it's okay because the corporation would eat all that money anyway and call it tax loss. They don't want to give black characters 5-10 years. If a book sells 2,000 copies, that sucks, yes. But if you cared about diversity, you cared about minorities, you can let that book ride and make no money. It's fine. Your parent corporation can eat those costs. It's not like they can't. Disney's got billions of dollars. Warner Bros. Billions of dollars. They don't want to put the time and effort into it because the people in charge don't want to do it. So they use a scapegoat. Oh, only sold X amount of copies for 6 months. We gotta cut bait now, and see, who don't want black characters.
Bottom line is
your retread issue.
Yeah, we got to pass the Dutch after you're done over to Dave. He's sitting there like, I want to say something.
Jump in there, Dave.
Oh no! I was listening to you guys have a good conversation. I'll jump in when
yeah. Just jump in with the double axe handle. We'll be ready.
Don was going in, so
he was. I respect it. But it's all part of the problem, because now, I'm sorry, MD Marie, but now I got to go back to Don again, because I understand both of you. I understand both sides, but that's the point. That's the struggle we've been in, because what Don just said is true. Stargirl is on the CW, started off in the DC Universe app, is on CW. That is a character that Jeff Johns created because of the death of his sister and has been elevated to television status. That character isn't even 20 years old, 10 years old, but it's already on television. They can hyper accelerate. They do have the resources. AT&T bought Warner Brothers for the express purpose of expanding their media empire into streaming and
they did
movies.
The same thing with Black Lightning, right?
Yeah, well, Black Lightning's been around forever, but he's been around for forever. He was with he was with the Outsiders for years. He was actually one of Batman's friends with the Outsiders.
Okay.
And Justice League West. No.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I disagree with what Don is saying, but at the same time, if you're talking about them investing money in these characters, and bringing them and elevating them to the iconic status of these characters that came up in the 40s. They're not as interested because the money's not behind them, right?
Right.
And we got to look for who is their main demographic, right? Is it people of color, or is it, their the people that grew up, the non-people of color that grew up with who's buying the most is my point.
But you see, that's an opportunity right now. It's a golden opportunity because, and again, I shift back to you. I said that earlier. These characters are institution. They're apple pie. Yeah. They're Coors Light. They're Coca-Cola. And it's going to take effort, but using a Miles Morales, using a Stargirl, using these characters, can it be done? Yes. Who is the demographic?
Yeah.
The demographic is, look at COVID-19. The demographic at the moment is everybody, because the future of the motion picture industry is shaky right now. AMC's on its way out. Okay. Streaming right now is the most viable solution for getting your product out there, either on the high end, mid end, or low end. And if I just saw a notice from Netflix scouting for new hero properties, new ideas. They are looking to create new tent poles because it is cheaper to create something new than it is to license. This is a golden opportunity. If AT&T did what they did to obtain Warner Brothers, and again, they see the writing on the wall that's happening with the motion picture industry, this is a golden opportunity. Vixen was a cartoon on the CW Seed app that they didn't convert to a full series, although there were some cameos. Why? Because that's the box they put her in. But it showed that they could if they wanted to. So again, it's both sides. They need to take a look at the writing on the wall. I don't want to see my TV black out and solidarity for Black Lives Matter and respect for George Floyd. Yeah, that's great for 5 minutes, but look at the fire. It's already starting to die out. In most cities, people are more focused on their bottom line because people are hungry. People are going to be hungry, and people are going to start struggling due to the economy. But just like it was in the Great Depression, what did people do? They read comics. They read the funnies. They went to see movies because these were cheap escapism from what was actually happening around them, which is how a lot of these characters became so prominent. So right now we're in a situation where we could do it again, but it's going to take strong characters, and it's going to take more of a concerted push from our community to elevate these characters to the same levels that we elevated T'Challa back in February of 2018. Thank you for joining us for part 1 of our Noir chat for the Kickstarter campaign of Noir's New Black, currently live on Kickstarter. We're currently sitting at 88%. We're trying to finish up strong to get across that finish line and bring you some surprises along the way in the form of stretch goals. None of this would be possible without the backing and support of the community. We are truly humbled with the outpouring that we have seen, and we thank you for backing. For anyone on the fence, give our Kickstarter page a look, or you can head on over to fairsquarecomics.com to check out updates about the project and get to know Fabrice Sapolsky a little bit better. You can also find Fair Square Comics on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But that's Fair Square Comics, comics for the rest of us. If you have any ideas, maybe you've been sitting on top of an idea for a comic for a while, got that itch, got the dream, again, head on over to fairsquarecomics.com and give Fabrice a shout. His phone number is on the page. I'm quite sure he'd be happy to hear from you. We'll be back with part 2 of our Noir chat. This is TC signing out for now.